It begins in that suspended state between midnight and dawn, aboard the last local train that coughs and rattles through the sleeping outskirts of the city. Leo, a man whose face in the dark window is a map of quiet disappointments, is jolted from a half-sleep not by a scheduled stop, but by a sudden, piercing silence as the train's familiar hum dies and the brakes sigh. Outside, materializing from the pitch black as if conjured, is a station platform bathed in the spectral glow of old sodium vapor lamps, casting everything in a sickly, amber twilight. The sign, wrought in ornate, outdated script, reads Greendale Mills, a name that resonates with a false nostalgia, like a memory from a dream you can't quite place. He isn't the only one disoriented. 3 other shapes stir in the carriage. Anya, whose eyes hold the flat exhaustion of a nurse who has seen too many shifts cycle into one another. Marcus, a young man whose large headphones have just been pulled down to reveal a face slack with boredom, and Mrs. Elwood, who moves with the deliberate, fragile care of someone carrying something precious in her woven bag. The decision to step out isn't a decision at all, but a collective, unspoken impulse, a need to ground themselves in the solidity of a platform. After the limbo of the train, the doors hiss shut behind them with a sound of finality, and the train, as if released from a spell, slides away into the darkness without a single light in its windows, leaving them in a silence so profound it feels pressurized. The air is cool and smells of damp concrete and distant ozone, a clean, empty smell. The station itself is a paradox, impossibly clean, yet layered with a palpable dust of neglect, like a museum diorama of a forgotten era. Advertisements on the walls boast products that haven't been manufactured in 50 years, their colors faded to pastel ghosts, and a faint, tinny melody from another decade whispers from a hidden speaker, the tune just recognizable enough to be unsettling. Leo's first coherent thought is to check the schedule, but the large board is dark, its panels blank and dead. His eyes are then drawn upward, to the great central clock mounted high on the vaulted ceiling. Its hands are frozen, not at a dramatic midnight, but at the mundane, specific time of 4:17. A glance around reveals more clocks, a smaller one, at the news kiosk. A digital display, above a bench hand, each is steadfastly, defiantly stopped, but crucially, not at the same time. One reads 9:08, another 11:19. The digital one, a stark 2:05. It's this lack of uniformity that pricks at the skin of logic, a detail wrong in a way that feels intentional. Time here hasn't stopped universally. It has been captured in individual, disparate moments, like insects in amber. Their little group, bound by sudden, shared vulnerability, moves toward the only source of contemporary life, a brightly lit kiosk at the platform's end, its fluorescent glow a harsh island in the amber sea. The attendant there is a man of indeterminate age, dressed in a crisp, vintage uniform, and his smile is a professional fixture, unwavering and bright. "Evening, folks," he says, his voice smooth as polished stone. "The last connection into the township has departed, I'm afraid, but the next train through will be along." When Anya asks for a timetable, he gestures vaguely toward the dark board with a chuckle that holds no warmth. "Oh, it runs on its own schedule. Always another train though. Can I offer you some tea while you wait? It's particularly soothing." His demeanor is flawless, helpful, yet it feels performed, a recording set to play for unexpected guests. It is Mrs. Elwood who first pierces the uncanny veil. She hasn't moved from her spot, her gaze locked on the kiosk's frozen clock. Her voice, when it comes, is thin and frayed, as if pulled from a great distance. 11:19, she murmurs, not to them, but to the memory. That's the time, the exact time. Henry's train pulled out. I held his hand through the window until the very last second, and then I watched the clock on the platform turn to 11:20 without him. He never came back from that war. The personal weight of the confession hangs in the air, transforming the random number into a tombstone. Anya, hearing her, goes very still. Her own eyes dart to the digital clock stuck at 2:05. Her professional composure cracks for a second, revealing raw nerve beneath. "I know that time," she whispers, her voice clinical yet haunted. "It's the moment I pronounced a patient, an old man in bed 4. I remember because his room clock had stopped, just like that, at 2:05. I thought it was a dead battery. I noted it in the log." Marcus, seeking escape from this creeping revelation, stalks off down a corridor, marked toilets and telephones, a corridor that seems to elongate the further he walks. its repeating pattern of tiles and overhead lights stretching into a disorienting infinity, a physical manifestation of their trapped state. His phone, which showed full signal bars a moment ago, now displays a void. The date on the screen is frozen, not on today, but on a date from 2 years past, the day his sister was rushed into surgery from which she would never fully wake. He stumbles back to the group, his bravado gone, face ashen as he stammers out this detail, the coincidence now forming a terrifying pattern. Leo, the pragmatist, the one clinging to rational anchors, insists it's a collective hallucination, a stress-induced shared delusion, but his own feet carry him on a frantic search for an authority figure. He finds a station master's office, its door ajar, and inside, a figure sits at a desk, back turned, perfectly still. On the desk, under a green-shaded lamp, sits a beautiful, old-fashioned brass clock. Its hands are fixed at 8:42. The breath leaves Leo's body in a slow, painful leak. That was the time the phone rang, the time a police officer's calm, terrible voice told him about the intersection, the skid marks, his daughter's bicycle. The foundation of his life didn't just crack at that moment. It was given a timestamp. And that timestamp is here, waiting for him, in this impossible room. This is no coincidence. This place is a curator. It doesn't just show time. It shows your time. The precise axis upon which your personal world irrevocably turned. The distant, mournful wail of a train whistle slices through the thick silence. But it comes from the opposite direction of their arrival. The attendant is suddenly beside them, having moved without a sound. Your onward journey is ready, he announces, the smile still plastered on. But his eyes now seem to look through them, not at them. Platform 1, mind the gap. It can be deceptive. Anya, her nurse's instinct for danger screaming, confronts him. Where does it go? What is this place? The attendant's smile finally dims, not into a frown, but into a blank, placid neutrality that is far worse. All stations are thresholds, he explains, his tone that of a patient teacher. This one simply specializes. It accommodates those lingering at a specific precipice. You can remain here, of course. It is peaceful. The past is quite settled here. Or you can board. But the doors to this particular platform open only once per guest. The choice is laid bare. Become a permanent resident in the museum of your own worst moment, or step into the unknown train. The train that glides into Platform 1 is a shock of sleek, silent modernity, all polished steel and soft, welcoming interior light. It is the antithesis of Greendale Mills, a promise of motion, of future. The pressure of the station, the weight of all those frozen moments, becomes unbearable. Leo, unable to stand the silent, ticking presence of 8:42 any longer, makes the first move, almost lunging toward the open doors. Marcus, terrified of the endless corridor and its implications, stumbles after him. Anya, after a last, desperate look at Mrs. Elwood's resolute back, gives in to herd instinct and follows, a sob catching in her throat as the doors seal behind her. Mrs. Elwood remains on the platform, a small, still figure facing the attendant. She has already weathered her storm. She feels no need to outrun its ghost. Inside the train, the relief is immediate, palpable, a drug flooding their systems. They sink into plush seats, the gentle motion a balm. They do not speak. The experience is too vast, too fragile to be contained in words. They simply exist in the grateful silence of escape. But as the miles slip by and the adrenaline fades, a subtle metamorphosis takes hold. The frantic fear in Leo's eyes dissolves, but what replaces it isn't commit's vacancy. The deep lines of worries smooth, not into peace, but into a strange, plastic neutrality. Marcus no longer fidgets. He sits with a posture of inert acceptance, his gaze fixed on nothing. Anya's hands, which were always moving, checking, comforting, now rest perfectly still in her lap, devoid of their innate purpose. The train isn't taking them away from their grief. It is carrying away what was left after Greendale Mills finished its work. The station didn't steal their memories. It performed a meticulous extraction, removing the raw, painful, living nerve of the loss. But in doing so, it severed the connections to all the adjacent feelings, the love that made the loss hurt, the anger that gave them fight, the yearning that defined their humanity. They do return home. They walk into their apartments, greet their loved ones. They are, by all external metrics, fine, better, perhaps. They are calm, they are agreeable. They no longer startle at loud noises or cry at sad films. Leo can look at his daughter's photograph and feel a distant, academic fondness, but the devastating, beautiful canyon of love and pain is gone, filled in with smooth, featureless sand. They are echoes moving through the world, perfectly preserved yet fundamentally hollow. The legend, therefore, is not a warning about a phantom station. It is a lament for the passengers. Greendale Mills is a spiritual refinery, and what it returns to the world is not a soul, but a placid, polished shell. So the next time you find yourself on the late-night train, watching the void between worlds slip past, and you see the glow of an unfamiliar platform where no stop should be, look not at the station, but at your own reflection in the glass, and wonder, with a cold clutch in your chest, if the person looking back is still someone who would choose to get off.